Hello, hello. Excuse me, Miss Oral. You can stand up over there. We got some minis on the screen. We got some me on the screen. We got my stream pulled up and sound checked. No. Who the hell do you think we are here? Who the heck? Who the... Okay. Can't hear the music at all. Which I could have told you if I had looked at my levels. Probably there. Classical music is just gonna do this shit. There. Classical music is just gonna do this shit. Classical music just... Give it a sec. Give it a sec. Yeah, I think I can hear it now. I think I can hear it okay now. Well, welcome to our DM prep session for Icewind Dale. We're gonna be doing something a little bit funky. This is kind of a sister program to our YouTube series. Probably will end up putting this on YouTube at some point. So make sure you get your clips out. Clips are enabled, by the way. So here we go. Everything's looking pretty good. I can see everything just fine. You guys can see most of the things just fine. So what is the plan today? Today we're just going to be kind of like hanging out, chatting a little bit, specifically going through one of the intro quests for Icewind Dale, in which we are going to be making a one-shot for our friends because we have unfortunate cancellations tomorrow. So brought out a couple of our minis just in case we need them. We probably won't need any of these guys, but these guys right here, if only that webcam could actually see them properly. These guys are going to be the focus of our little journey. This one's not going to do much of a better job. The Chwingas. Let's get it pulled up here somewhere. Chwinga. No, not Chinga. The Chwinga. There we go. See, and this is so great because I can just click this button and it just pulls up my screen. Isn't that cool? The Twingas are these little creatures, and we'll kind of go over what they are and who they are. These are the minis that I was showing off. They are these guys. Excuse me, pardon me, I'll get out of their way. These lovely folks right here. There's mainly two different versions. One of them lives on the island of Cholt, which is where they originate, and then there was a migratory like flock of them or something that ended up in Icewind Dale that later turned into these more icy themed ones. The Twingas are essentially like nature spirits. We'll kind of go over some of their stats and stuff as we go through, but our primary goal here, turn this one off. We're looking into making a one-shot for level 1 characters, and these level 1 characters are going to be starting in Icewind Dale. We're not going to be doing a lot of the typical like Icewind Dale sort of like starting stuff, like giving them secrets and stuff like that, because I don't want to dive too deep into like Icewind Dale lore while we're here, because I do intend on running the actual campaign at some point. So we can find, here's another example of our Twingas here. We can find some wilderness survival information, of course. I went all over all of this in the YouTube series. We only have one thing up so far, but we need to find not the character secrets, not the hooks. There should be a section that has our introductory quests. Let's see here. Icewind Dale 1 to 10 is in chapter 1, 10 towns, of course. Life of the Lake, 10 towns overview. Okay, classical music's getting a little bit too ham there. We're trying to keep it like a little bit low key there, buds. If you don't mind, maybe we can swap over to some like chilled electronic. I love the classical music, but we'll see. We will see. Okay, this doesn't seem too bad. Not coming through super great, but that should be fine for right now. So the things that we are looking for Lots of general information in here. Here's Sefek Caltro, who will not be featured in this one-shot, but here are our Chwingas, who actually will be featured. There's some really, really cute Chwinga art. People love these. Cute little mischievous nature spirits. What is not to love? So, this page over here is all talking about Sefek Caltro and his intro quest, which is what we'll actually be playing when we do the Icewind Dale. But over here is the starting quest for nature spirits, which is a very low combat, sort of like high fantasy, sort of whimsical style quest from what I've heard. I haven't actually read through it in depth yet, which is what we're going to be doing here. But from what I've heard, it's mostly like, it's not a super involved. It's not a ton of like combat or anything. It's 4 level 1 characters and should be easily completable by like a single character if they wanted to. But it sets a tone in Icewind Dale that's not necessarily the tone that I want to lean into super heavily. It is a tone that still exists in Icewind Dale. Of course, all of D&D is just going to have like fancy and whimsy all over the place just because it's D&D. But I wanted to kind of save this in my back pocket to like liven things up or use as a one-shot or something like that, which is what we're going to end up doing here. So we'll look at our starting quest right down here. Looks like here they are using a stolen plate and cutlery. 3 Twingas play house in the snow. They're obsessed with humans. They like emulating humans. They like talking to humans. From what I understand, they think that we're just as adorable as we think they are. So, starting the quest, Nature Spirits. This is the second of 2 quests designed to kick off the adventure. It prompts the characters to explore the various locales in 10 towns where they can pick up other quests. At the start of the quest, the characters are approaching a young spellcaster named Danica Greysteel, a new resident of 10 towns. She's trying to find her way to alter the climate in Icewind Dale. She hires them to locate and capture a Chwinga, several of which she believes are located around 10 towns. Although she provides the characters with a magical means to locate Chwingas, it's up to them to figure out a way to capture one or convince it to help Danica with her experiments. So obviously we're not going to be moving around Icewind Dale too super much. We might move around like maybe 1 or 2 towns, but I don't want to go super into the spoiler aspect and like give away aspects of towns that they wouldn't know otherwise. So we'll be like tweaking some of the towns. I'll be kind of like leaning into the alterations that we're going to be making here, and that's kind of a big part of what turning this into a one-shot is going to look like for us. Beginning the quest. Begin this quest by reading the following boxed text to the players. A bundled up figure walks briskly up to you. Well met! You seem like you're looking for work or trouble. You wouldn't be standing around in this cold otherwise. The speaker is Danica Greysteel, a lawful, neutral, half-elf acolyte, a scholar who thinks that we elemental spirits known as Twingas might be the key to improving Icewind Dale's climate. Since Twingas are known to inhabit 10 towns and have some ability to alter their natural surroundings, she thinks that she can learn a lot from studying one up close. For the character services, she's offering the group 25 gold pieces as well as a lantern of tracking elementals that can help locate Twingas. She says she'll be at the local tavern each evening, so the characters will have no trouble finding her once the job is completed. If the characters accept her quest, Danica gives them her lantern and explains how it works. She then tells them she's been looking all over town and hasn't found any Twingas. She suggests characters might have better luck in one of the other settlements. She should continue the search herself, but she's nervous about venturing out into the extreme cold and has other research-related chores to do. So most likely we'll have maybe most of the Twingas located in and around the area, maybe even some that are like interacting with Danica to an extent. I'm not sure. It looks like we might actually also have to pick a town that they're starting in for this, which we'll be able to dive into a little bit more as we move on here. Elusive Elementals. There are no Twingas in the adventurer's starting town. but each time they visit another town in Icewind Dale, there's a cumulative 25% chance Chwinga will be present. Searching the town for Twingas doesn't take long if the characters use a lantern of tracking, since the towns are small and compact. If the characters ask the residents of a town about Chwinga sightings, people seem dismissive of the notions of elementals living among them. The occasional fisher reeking of dwarven ale might recall seeing a tiny figure riding a fox through town, but can't remember where or when the sighting occurred. So that'll definitely be some nice imagery. I've got a little bit in some concept art right here, it looks like. Where is it? Turn that on. Look at that bad boy. Riding a little fox. The icy versions and the classical versions and kind of like some of their inspiration. That's really nice. That's a nice little Pinterest thing they pulled up there. Heck yeah, dude. Thieves in the Wind. When the characters find a town that the Twingas living in or near it, the flame in the lantern of tracking elementals turns green as they approach the edge of town. Whereupon they spot a bundled up figure, a human commoner named Elva, stomping out of a snow-covered cottage. Okay. Upon seeing the adventurer, she starts yelling at the wind and warning the characters to watch out for the curses it brings. According to Elva, trickster spirits have been opening her windows, sending horrible chills through her home and knocking over her cups and plates. Some of her cutlery has even gone missing. Characters who inspect the windows of Elva's cottage make a DC 10 intelligence investigation check. On success, they find wee tracks leading away from the snowy windowsill of the cottage towards a nearby thicket. A character who succeeds on a DC 14 wisdom survival check can discern 3 individual sets of tiny footprints. Some of the footprints have a thin furrow in the snow alongside them, as if something was being dragged behind the creatures. Playing house. By following the tracks, a character with passive wisdom perception score of 13 or higher can pick up the sound of movement from behind the conifers, where 3 Twingas are playing atop the snow in a clearing. The dinner plate with branches and pine cones arrayed on it is placed between them, and one Chwinga sitting at the edge of the plate, while the other 2 are moving a fork and knife as to cut and eat the quote-unquote food. Some of their human mockery, or not mockery, but imitation. When the characters enter the clearing, the Twingas look at them with interest. One, not holding a piece of cutlery, starts moving its hands, mimicking eating, while looking up at the characters and making welcoming gestures. The character indulges in the game of pretend that is being played out, such as by sitting down and joining the dinner. The Twingas become excited and start inspecting the character in detail. After this, the Twinga that wasn't holding any cutlery begins following the character, remaining with that individual for up to a 10-day, leaving the other Twingas behind. When the Chwinga finally parts company with the character, assuming it has been well treated, it bestows a supernatural charm upon the character. See the supernatural gifts in the Dungeon Master Guide. The charm can be any one of the following: a charm of animal conjuring, a charm of heroism, charm of vitality, all of which are described in the DMG, and one of the charms described by the new Chwinga charms in Appendix C. Okay, so animal conjuring, heroism, vitality. Heroism and vitality are both most likely like wisdom save related and like temporary HP, most likely, like hero's feast kind of stuff. The Twingas remain docile unless a character acts aggressively towards them, whereupon they try to hide nearby rocks, plants, or snowdrifts. They won't come out until they no longer feel threatened by the humanoids in their presence. Clever players might devise creative ways to lure the Twingas out of hiding. Excuse me. Perhaps by doing something odd to gain their attention, such as engaging in a snowball fight or dancing in the snow. As the DM, you determine the success of the efforts. If the characters return with a live Chwinga, Danica pays their promised reward 25 GP, and they get to keep the Lantern of Tracking. If the characters brought a Chwinga back without having to restrain or harm it, she provides them with an extra 25 GP for their outstanding service. So that's going to get us started. Definitely, I see where a lot of people are coming from, where it's a super, it's a very straightforward quest. It's not a whole lot of stuff going on, and kind of seems like you just kind of like walk into a town and you just complete the quest. Like, you don't actually have to do anything. There's a total of 2 checks plus a percentile dice that's involved there. So I think that we can definitely spice that up a little bit. I'm going to be right back. Okay. We are back. So, now that we are back, what is our, what are the major, what is happening with this? Oh, I hear what's happening with this song. Okay. So what are the major like what are our major like selling points of this quest, right? Obviously the Twingas. Okay. They Danica Greysteel, Elin Half Elf Acolyte. Then there is the other character that is mentioned, who is Elva, who is homeowner being robbed slash, oh, excuse me, harassed. Okay. And of course the Twingas and the characters. So those are kind of the only moving parts, right? Elva's house, Chwinga clearing are the locations. We'll go ahead and make this an actual like locations. Boom. Bold. People or characters. Just like so. Bum, 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 bum. What is this? This is a 16? Make this 16 as well. And bold. So characters, locations, Elva's house. DC 10 investigation to find footprints. And a DC 14 survival to track footprints. In the Chwinga clearing, if characters are, or let's just do if friendly, we're going to give them Twingas, inspect them, and follow. And one follows specifically. If aggressive, Twingas hide, and they hide and they just kind of run, right? Yeah. Hide until no longer threatened. Awards boon. So, what kind of this is like literally it, right? Like this is the quest. I don't necessarily love that. I don't love that as an idea. There's a couple of things that I'm immediately come to mind as things that we can do to spice this up. For one, it kind of lacks conflict, right? Any D&D like one shots, or not one shots, but books will do this a lot, where they kind of have this expectation of the player creating the conflict themselves, which is not an unreasonable thing to expect, right? But if you base your whole quest on that, then the quest will immediately become boring, because whether or not your players are role players or like min-maxers, they're probably going to find the fastest way. It's not that hard to lie to a Chwinga, right? We'll be getting into their actual characteristics. So this quest will likely not actually have any conflict the way that it's set up right now. So we're going to have to spice up giving it some conflict. What are our options as far as, like, if we were to give this a big bad evil guy, right? We got to make the Chwingas the big bad evil guy, or like the final boss, right? If they like kind of put the players in a situation where they have to fight and capture the Chwinga forcibly. Danica Greysteel can be the big bad evil guy one way or the other. Excuse me. She could Whether she actually is, and actually I don't think is that particularly difficult CR. We'll look it up as we go. But one of the reasons that she can pretty easily kind of fill that role is because, excuse me, while I get these tabs moved over. One of the reasons she can kind of easily fill that role is actually because if she was evil, right, and sent the players to capture the Chwinga might defend themselves, and that way we might have like an army of snow hares attack the players or something, right? So we'll spice it up. Ideas for spiciness. Uh-oh. Bring this back down to an 11, please. And not bolded. In order to spice it up, one idea is Danica is evil, sends, or evil / misled, right? Sends players to capture Chwinga. Chwinga defend adorably. Players decide which side to take. Right, so in this situation, we would have the Chwingas do something like an animal summoning, right? And let's like attack the party, have like a fun little combat with like a bunch of snow hares or something like that, or like foxes. And then the players like fight through that, get out to the other side, because they're only going to be level 1, so it won't be anything too crazy. They fight through that, get to the other side, and then they will encounter the Twingas, and the Twingas would most likely be like subconsciously protecting themselves, or they're trying to protect themselves from Danica, not necessarily the players, so they don't see the players as much of a threat, but maybe their defenses did see the players as a threat. I'm sorry, am I disappearing a little bit here? I think I might be. Excuse me, my background is white, so I didn't even notice. It's a little more disappearing. There we go. That should be a little bit better for us. So that's kind of one idea, right? So this way, either the Twingas can be the final boss, or Danica herself can be the final boss when the players like turn on her and go like try to beat her up. Is there a way to make Elva like encounterable? Is there a way to make Elva more encounterable? I mean, Elva could be working with the players / Danica to like try to capture the Twingas. She does have an evil sounding name. Elva has evil sounding name. She could, oh man, I don't even know, be trying to frame the Chwinga? Misleading Danica. So if Elva had taught Danica some folk tales about the Chwingas being able to change the weather, and then Danica misconstrues that into thinking that she can use it to help fix the Icewind Dale situation. That might be something that we can kind of look into. What we are going to do right away, though, or not right away, but now we've kind of got some baseline ideas down. We are going to look into not Oro, not any of the other Oro forms. We're going to try to find the Chwinga. We got a lot of information about Chwinga here. So Chwinga is a tiny elemental spirit that lives in plants, rocks, rivers, far from civilization. Those found in cold climates also live in ice and snow. Painfully shy, Twingas prefer to move around unseen. They resemble 6-inch tall animated dolls with mask-like faces, spindly limbs, and wild hair. Their appearance is sometimes foreshadowed by gentle breezes and the smell of sweet flowers, dancing fireflies, or snowflakes. They don't have names and cannot speak. Okay, that's probably pretty important because they're not going to be able to like fend their case, right? Humanoid fascination. Twingas find the trappings of civilization fascinating. They puzzle over creatures that wear armor, carry weapons, use tools, and cook food. When a Chwinga encounters one or more humanoids, its curiosity sometimes gets the better of it, and it follows them for a short time to observe them. If it takes a liking to a humanoid, a Chwinga might use its cantrips to aid the creature, or it might bestow a magical gift before departing, which would be what was mentioned before. The aspect that attracts a Chwinga to a humanoid can take any form. In some cases, a Chwinga might simply like the way a humanoid walks or the way it combs its hair. Other times, it might be smitten by a humanoid's ability to play music or eat copious amounts of food. So basically, any kind of like human behavior is game for a Chwinga to like latch onto. So looking at their stat block, let's see here. Looking at their stat block, they have 15 AC, 5 HP, pretty super low HP, reasonable AC. Acrobatics, perception, and stealth are all really, really good. They have evasion. They're CR 0, by the way. They have evasion. When the Chwinga is subjected to an effect that allows them to make a dex save, take only half. Okay, so it's just like classic evasion. Innate spellcasting that they use, they can cast Druidcraft, Guidance, Pass Without Trace, and Resistance at will. So Resistance and Pass Without Trace are both pretty good things to be able to cast at will, I'm not gonna lie. The Chwinga doesn't require air, food, or drink. When it dies, it turns into a handful of flower petals, a cloud of pollen, a stone statuette resembling its former self, a tiny sphere of smooth stone, or a puddle of fresh water, your choice. Magical gift once per day. Chwinga targets a humanoid it can see within 5 feet. Target gains a supernatural charm of the DM's choice and natural shelter. Magically take shelter inside of a rock, a living plant, or a magical source of fresh water in its space. Chwinga can't be targeted by an attack spell or other effect while it's inside the shelter. Shelter doesn't impair its blind sight, and it can use an action to emerge from the shelter. If the shelter is destroyed, the Chwinga is forced out and appears in the shelter space, but is otherwise unharmed. So they can actually climb in objects to kind of evade detection and also to hide from potential angry players. They have 20-foot movement speed, 20-foot climb, 20-foot swim. They don't speak, but they have a blindside of 60 feet and a passive perception of 17, which is really, really good. So they're pretty hard to like sneak up on, honestly. Unless you have some extra stuff. There's also this section over here, the Twingas specifically in Icewind Dale. The Twingas first appeared in the published adventure Tomb of Annihilation as creatures indigenous to the tropical peninsula of Chult. As spirits of the elements, however, they range far and wide. Large numbers of them came to Icewind Dale with immigrants from Chult and made new homes for themselves in and around 10 towns. Those that remained near civilization adopted the garbs of their humanoid neighbors, imitating, creating miniature coats for themselves. Okay, so these little coats are actually them wearing, trying to imitate the clothing. That's cool. Those that remain, they can sometimes be seen riding on Arctic foxes or snowshoe hares. Others wandered into the tundra, changing their coloration to blend in with their surroundings. Exposure to Oral's nightly aurora and the unnatural blizzards she creates can cause the Twingas to behave unpredictably, even insanely. Okay, so they can be a little bit unstable, potentially unstable enough to like warrant the players like having some like ill will towards them potentially. New Chwinga charms. Let's see. Charm of Biting Cold. Charm has 3 charges. As a bonus action, you can expend one of the charges to wreath your weapon attacks with Biting Cold for a minute. This effect ends, you deal an extra 1d6 cold damage when you hit a melee or ranged weapon attack. Upon all of its charges have been expended, the charm can vanish from you. So these charms aren't going to be super useful. However, I will say, I think that if it was a situation where we made Danica Greysteel not a very nice lady, right? And had the players like go meet the Twingas and then turn around to like come back to Danica, the Twingas could give them blessing, then they could have this cool kind of like final boss fight with some bonuses for themselves. Let's see, Charm of Bounty. As an action, you can expend one of the charm's charges to cast. Okay, so these charms are limited use. They don't actually regain. They don't regain their uses, which is interesting. You can cast Create Food and Water, requiring no components. Once all the charges have been expended, the charm vanishes from you, okay? The Charm of Cold Resistance allows you to give yourself resistance to cold damage as an action. This benefit lasts for 24 hours, after which the charm vanishes from you. Charm of Snowball Strike. The charm has 5 charges. As a bonus action, you can expend one of the charm's charges to create a magical snowball in your hand and throw it. You must have a hand free to hold the snowball, or the charge is wasted. The snowball is magic ranged attack with which you are proficient. Has a normal range of 20, long range of 60, deals 1d4 cold damage, scores a crit on a 19 or 20. That's so good. That's so amazing, actually. Score a crit with the snowball. The target is blinded until the end of its next turn. Snowball vanishes immediately after you hit or miss with it at the end of your turn. If you don't throw it, once all its charges have been expended, the charm vanishes from you. So that's also something that we can do to potentially give the Chwinga some form of attack if something breaks down into combat, so that to bump them up slightly above a literal CR0, they can just like be chucking snowballs at the players. Which I think is something I'm interested in, mostly because I think that having them like playfully throw snowballs at the players can also be a really good idea. So we'll see it to like kind of potentially mislead them, or like make them think that they're like trying to be attacked, but they're actually just not. They're just trying to play. Ice Troll allows you to use your action. When you take cold damage, to reduce the damage to 0, you regain a number of hit points equal to half the cold damage you would have taken. That's pretty cool. Charm of the Snow Walker. The charm has 3 charges. As an action, you can expend one of the charm's charges to gain the following benefits for 24 hours. You and your allies within 15 feet ignore difficult terrain by snow or ice. You can see through areas heavily obscured by snow for a distance up to 60 feet. You're immune to the effects of extreme cold, as described in the Dungeon Master Guide. And once all charges have been expended, blah, blah, blah. Charm of the Traveler's Haven. You can cast Liam in Tiny Hut 3 times. Very cool. I like that a lot. So, I think that we have a good basis here, and we can kind of start building from it. We shall see. I think that... So, thinking through, I feel like I like the idea of Danica as being misled / is evil, just actually. Also, could it be able to, like... I believe in you, camera. You could make it. So, I like that idea of her being evil or misled. I think we could... So there's a setup that I think that we could potentially pull off here. And it's an interesting one because it kind of could tie back into the actual Icewind Dale campaign that I intend on running. What we could do is add another character into like the mix here as they're like exploring around. We could add Sefet Caltro in. And what would adding Sefet Caltro into this scenario actually do for us? Sefet Caltro. I think that's how you spell his name. Sefet Caltro is a character from the other starting quest, right? He would be a person who... Oh, man. He would be an interesting one to include, I think, because what we could do with him is have him, like, guide the players and have him, like, have a nice impression with the players. Have him be a very nice guy and super willing to help, like, point them in the right direction, and just kind of introduce that there are caravans that go and roam through in between the towns, because that's what his sort of caravan does. I think that would be pretty interesting because we could that way the events would play out a little bit more like this. So we have our event line, right? And I can zoom in a little bit here. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit here. Not that one. This one. This picture. Let's just crop this down a little bit, move it over here. So our event line, right? Oh, come on, dude. So we have players speak to Danica. Told about Chwinga and experiments to fix the winter, right? So including Sefek here will absolutely mean that we have to, it has to be during the Arl's Eternal Winter, right? So we have the players speak to Danica, tell them about the Chwinga and the experiments. As the players are looking around, we can possibly have a couple of other options. So we need to make sure we have space for interactions in town. Find Sefek Caltro. So I'm confident that Sefek Caltro as a character is enough to bring like their attention in, mostly because he's super interesting because he's not wearing any cold winter clothes, right? He's got the piercing like light blue eyes. He's a very like striking character, and then as long as I keep his introduction like warm enough, they're not gonna be like super weirded out by him, especially because I already know that one of my characters has a gift from Oral, and so his kind of go-to, because he's got his own stuff going on, but his kind of go-to is to say that he's one of Oral's like chosen, or he was born on that specific night. I forget what night it was. Maybe we can find him in here. I think Sefek's stat block is actually, no, there's no way his stat block is actually up here. So this would be a way to introduce the players to Sefek without actually having them fight him, which I think would be really cool. It'll make the world feel more alive, and it will make the location, it'll give the players meta knowledge, which is something that I love playing with. His stat block is up here. Something that I love playing with, because they'll have this meta knowledge from this one shot when we actually go into Icewind Dale, and they'll remember this guy and remember how helpful he was, right? So there'll be like conflict there when he actually like turns on them, because I do intend to like spice up his quest a little bit as well. So they find Sefek Caltro, and he is he's super helpful. And what is it that he's a veteran. He does some stuff with the sacrifices, which is all well and good, but mostly we could also introduce him to Torga, which is going to potentially introduce another character, possibly Torga. We can kind of have Sefek like out on his own for the most part and kind of interacting with the party solo as a one shot. Like we don't have to worry about the continuity as much. We still want to worry about the continuity and the like refrigerator testing of our own stuff. But I think that, so if I have them interact with this Sefek Caltro, right, they will talk to him. We'll have him be super helpful, and we'll have him point them to Elva's place. He knows the lay of the land and rumors. The townspeople like him. The party likes him. The tells them about a cottage on outskirts of the town. So then he'll lead them to Elva's house. And so now we're going to start getting into, we're starting to reach a point where we're going to need the bad guy, right? We've thrown some stuff in there, but eventually we're going to need an actual conflict. In Elva's house, I feel like is a really good place to... you could almost have Elva Monday is just kind of like variety, whatever we're doing. How are you doing, by the way, Gecko? Luckily, Landlord was super fun, but it kind of ran its course. It was either going to be Monster Hunter today or just doing a variety stream, but I ended up having to run a one shot tomorrow, so we're currently doing some D&D prep. So in Elva's house, the Elva's been being harassed by the Twingas, stolen from. Is there a way that we can make something unrelated seem more related? So this Elva lady, she lives on the outskirts of town, and she is saying that she's getting harassed by the Chwinga. Excuse me, something in my beard. Of course, it's just like small footprints. A little bit of cutlery is missing, but in order to like possibly make it more ominous, right? We could add in something like dead chickens, right? Dead chickens, livestock. That would make sense. Because the players would obviously immediately associate that, but it could be just whoever we decide is the like manipulator in the situation can be passing whoever's the manipulator in the situation could have done that and planted those chickens or whatever. Still avoiding picking who the manipulator in the situation is, but we could have it be Sefek Caltro. Maybe. Maybe leaning into the other side of the metagame of like showing that Sefek Caltro is actually a bad guy. We could have him kind of be behind the scenes, but not be too big of a player. Elva's been harassed and stolen from. So at this situation, when they go to try to interact with the Twingas, do we throw in like a combat or something? We could. So we could throw in like if so the kind of situation playing out that I'm seeing right now, right, is Sefek Caltro and Elva working together because for whatever reason they like hate Twingas, right? Sefek Caltro is kind of like on the abomination scale, so he might have a reason to like hate Twingas, or like maybe they actually think that the Twingas can reverse the winter and they don't want that, so that would make sense. So we can have Elva and Sefek like summon something or put something in the way of the players. There would be, of course, misleading Danica. I'm going to have to look and see if Danica comes up anywhere else. Give me a second to check the back of the book here. Because I don't think that Danica comes up anywhere. It wouldn't be the back of the book. It would be the front of the book, probably. It would be really nice if I had... Don't think I'll be able to find her. Character sheets, epilogue. Let's just try to give her a quick Google. Danica, what is her last name? Greysteel. Forgotten Realms Wiki. She's a scholar who studied nature and weather, frozen lands of Icewind Dale, during late 15th century DR. She had a lantern of tracking. This is all information we know. She moved to Tin Towns not long after it was afflicted by the everlasting Rime. She looked to hire help in order to catch one of Twingas, which were proving to be rather elusive. Okay, so she doesn't really get a ton of payoff here, right? So if we have Elva and Sefek planting information, we can have them... I like where this is going. planting information about Twingas to mislead Danica. And then potentially towards the end, Danica like gets wise to the whole operation and turns against Elva and maybe some other monsters with the party. So the Twingas are innocent. They're completely innocent and oblivious, right? Elva needs to have a reason to hate the Chwinga as well as Sefek. There's some reason that they want the Chwinga captured and out of that particular area. I mean, it could be as easy as like just write it off as like for whatever reason they just have a natural hatred because Sefek's like an abomination. We could have it so that maybe Sefek wants to experiment on the Chwingas and thinks that getting Danica to capture them would be an easier way because the Chwingas can naturally sense people like Sefek when he's around, right? That seems like it would make a decent amount of sense. And then Elva, of course, would just be like some paid off schmuck who ends up trying to fight her way out. That would make sense. I think that having Sefek / his druid wants Twingas to experiment on can easily steal from Danica. Now we have motivations for everyone, for the most part. Danica's is a little bit light, honestly, because she just wants to, like, study the Chwinga, right? So they have... Yeah. I can dig this. I can actually really dig this. So the Chwinga are oblivious and innocent, which is good because they're being framed to look like they've been driven insane. And Elva even could have been convinced that the Chwinga got driven insane, right? Elva could just be a homeowner, and Sefek Caltro has planted the like dead chicken. He's been in there murdering her chickens and like actually doing the rough stuff, while the Twingas are just there. They're like stealing silverware, right? They just want to have a dinner party. They want to have a cute little tea party. They're not actually there to cause any harm. So I think that works really, really well. So how does that change anything in our like mission statement here? Players speak to Danica, told about the Chwinga and the experiments to fix the winter. Not experiments, but just wants to study. Study is important because if you put experiment in there, they're going to think that Danica's actually the bad guy. Sefek Caltro is super helpful. He knows the lay of the land and some rumors. Tells them about the cottage on the outskirts of town. That's when they go to Elva's house and meet Elva. She's been harassed, stolen from, has dead chickens and livestock. We can probably have her cottage like a little bit more roughed up in a couple of ways. Roughed up cottage at the end of her rope. Then we journey to Chwinga hiding place by using a combination of the lantern and tracking. On the way there, we need to have a conflict that makes the players like somewhat mistrusting of the Chwinga, right? Because I want to keep the Chwinga themselves super pure and innocent, but with Sefek like trying to plant all of this stuff because he can't get close to them, he might have planted some traps. And maybe if one of the characters has, not or knows anything about the area or knows anything about Chwinga. They might know that the Chwinga aren't supposed to be acting this way. And then when they get there and the Chwinga are acting how they are supposed to be acting, then they'll kind of realize that something is amiss, right? We'll need to make sure to plant evidence that like stuff has been tampered with, right? So we'll probably have like a fairly high either survival or investigation check. Fairly high survival or investigation to find evidence that it wasn't Chwinga. Like maybe they find Kasefik also conjures like an ice spear, right? So if they find that there's no like sign of like steal or murder weapon, so obviously it was the Twingas that did it, right? Because they got killed by like an ice weapon, but the ice weapon seems way larger than the little 6-inch Twinga would be able to use. Something like that. They journey to the Chwinga hiding place, and that's where we throw in a fun encounter for them. I'm not super great at balancing out level 1 encounters, I won't lie to you. Something that we want kind of a tough one. I like the idea of throwing a bunch of like Arctic foxes at them or something, right? The Arctic foxes specifically, though, we can't use the Arctic foxes because the Arctic foxes are actually aligned with the Chwinga. So we would have to find something else. We could even still use the Arctic fox stat block, even though these are CR0 and not going to be particularly useful for us. We can find something. We're only going to have 2 players. We want anything that's super, super crazy. The hares, the kobolds. Probably not going to use kobolds. They are very interesting and very easy to place anywhere. The Ceramorphs are definitely not going to be getting used for this. Mountain Goat, CR1/8. Potentially. We probably want to find something that's like a little bit more on the unsettling side, right? So that we can give the players that like opportunity to like put 2 and 2 together in the situation. I have returned. I brought with me so many things. I didn't actually bring anything with me. Gonna plug this in. Hopefully. Plug it in blind. No. No, I don't think so. Not gonna let me. There we go. Did you just immediately turn off? No. Okay, so now we're back at it. We're looking for a level 1 encounter. Oh, we want something wilderness-like, but not necessarily wilderness, right? D&D 5e, level 1, encounter, wilderness. This would be a great time to use something like the D&D encounter builder. Let's see, wilderness encounters at low level. Nice. Tribal warrior herding several goats and dreaming of a life adventure. A few bandits, several merfolk. Axe beaks, blink dogs, not quite what I'm looking for. Okay. D4 scouts mounted on giant bats. Jesus Christ. That's so many. That's so much shit. Let's see. Probably not going to find anything in there. What are our random encounters ideas that are in Frost Maiden Dale? Icewind Dale, rather. Grinchander travel time. Ten-time rumors, fuel sources, how I died. Looking for encounters of the wild kind. There's an encounter chart in here somewhere. Where is it? Wilderness Encounters, page 105. There we go. Boom. Number of encounters. Yetis. Goliath Werebear. Cragcats. Cold Light Walker. Charlatan Berserkers. Frost Druid and Friends. No. Dwarves. Goliath Party. Chwinga. Awakened Beast. Icewind Kobold. Humans. Herd of Beasts. I mean, I feel like the Awakened Beast encounter is probably one of our better ones. Because the Awakened Beast can actually be held under duress, right? So it's kind of a theme that can kind of run through Icewind Dale, where the Awakened Beasts will be awakened and then be convinced that unless they do this task, unless they like find this thing or protect this place, then they will not be allowed, like they'll get their intelligence taken away from them, right? So that could be interesting for sure. The Berserkers, not really. Gnolls are an interesting one. It could be gnolls. I could definitely see gnolls being a thing that they encounter. The Goliath Party is definitely something that you save. No Reghead tribes. Peritons. What the heck's a Periton? Come down from the spine of the world to hunt. Okay, these things look pretty scary. This is what we're looking at here. I'm pretty sure I remember these being like somewhat beefy. What are their what are you looking at as far as like CR and stuff like that? I need a stat block here. There's so much information on these damn things. Oh, yeah, just Google search stat block, why don't you? Periton stat block. Here we go. These are CR2. So one of these could be an interesting fight. Let's see. Let's make sure they're not too scary. They are in that like one-shotty range. Periton makes one gore attack and one talent attack. So I like this concept. They're a monstrosity. They're outside of the... Oh, hey, you can't see what I'm seeing here. They're outside of the realm of like natural existence slightly, right? But not too much. They're still animal-like, but they're still monstrosities, which means that they wouldn't necessarily be aligned with the Chwinga. So that could be played up. Okay. Let's see. If there was another monstrosity, something similar, maybe something that also flies. Because one of these, I think, would be a big... This would be tough. This would be tough, especially if I played it smartly. I think these guys are a little bit... how do you say... discerning. They're a little bit... there's a term that I'm looking for. Misleading. I think they're a little bit stronger than they come across. Because 2 attacks, I know for a fact that one of my players is going to be a wizard type, so that's most likely going to be the case. I will check the whatchamacallit, the monster manual. So now that we are in the monster manual, Ignoring some of these things that my fellow DM has marked are his things. Oh. Now that that has been taken care of, where were we? Oh, caps are popping off a little bit. Okay, so where were we? We were looking for monstrosities. Something that flies, something that's relatively dangerous, but not so incredibly dangerous that one of them just wrecks the party. Pixies and pseudo-dragons are interesting. Gnolls are a little bit too far gone. And we could also just take something and warp it a little bit, right? Like we could do with the awakening thing. Shield Guardian skeletons, Slod. You know, we could do something like summoning something objectively evil, like skeletons or something like that. That could be pretty interesting. Have it summoning something that's like easily summonable, but is like really like super out of place for the Chwinga themselves. Let's see. Fairy Dragon, Drow, Elementals. Elemental would be kind of tempting. What do we got in the Elementals segment here? 123. Pretty sure that I remember all of these Elementals, at least the ones in this book, are fairly strong. Yep, CR5 is definitely not going to happen, but you know what could happen? Mephits, or maybe even like Magman. Let's see. This is the Werebears. Mephits are super interesting. They're basically the same as those Magmen, and we can have the Mephits summoned in a way that is pretty interesting for us. Mephit stat block. For instance, an Ice Mephit. Very, very good example. I think that most of these Mephits are basically identical. All of their stuff, they have the same death burst. They don't have the same death burst, actually. Smoke, steam, magma, mud, and I think that's it. Dust and ice. Got you. So, what do we got going on here? AC 11, HP 21, super reasonable. Vulnerable to bludgeoning and fire damage. Immune to cold and poison damage. Immune to being poisoned. Knows Aquan and Orin. Specifically, Mephits are kind of evil, right? So they're, even though they are elementals, which could put them on the same tier as the Chwinga, I think the Mephits are the perfect bad guy here. So we can have our, let's see, Mephit encounter. Encounter. We'd have ice and maybe like, the magma one is a little bit more aggro. The mud one is interesting. I think mud would go in there. What does the steam one do? He just does damage. And the smoke one blinds though. So I think that we can take these Mephits and not only I still can't tell. Is my shoulder turning see-through again? I don't think so. I think I'm just a little bit illuminated. We can take these Mephits and reflavor them in such a way, like the mud, like we have the ice one, right? And then the mud one could just be like snow. And then the smoke one can just be probably like still smoke or something. Like more snow. we could do ice and then slush and then snow, right? And that way we could throw a pretty decent encounter at them. I do kind of wish that I was logged into D&D Beyond here. Let's see if I'm logged into D&D Beyond on my phone. I might be. Otherwise, I can probably check my laptop over there. D&D Beyond. Not logged in, but we can check my laptop really quickly. Oh. Oh, there we go, there we go. I don't know what D&D considers actually deadly encounters. I think that having 3 of these would be a good encounter for a party of 2. D&D Beyond. I know I've logged into D&D Beyond on this computer before, but maybe. Nope, doesn't look like it. That's totally fine. Oh. Let's see if we can find one online, shall we? Encounter difficulty 5e. Would you look at that? It's pretty easy to do a lot of this stuff while being online and not exactly having all of the resources. Not that I'm actually advocating for that kind of stuff, but determine encounter difficulty 5e, encounter difficulty 6 to 8, medium, XP threshold. Yeah. But like, how? First level. There we go. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for a party. These are for parties of 4, most likely. Character level, first level, an easy encounter is 25 EXP, which a CR 1/2 is worth 50 EXP. So a hard encounter would be 100, or a deadly encounter would be 100. So I think that these would be a pretty deadly encounter, but as long as I played them correctly, don't think that we would be in too much trouble, honestly. I think that 3 methods is pushing it. We might just do 2 methods. We'll see. Where is my 2 or 3 methods max? Probably try to avoid doing things like ambushing the party, even though the methods are kind of built for that. That is a thing that we would definitely have to get them. That way we can kind of throw in a small encounter, keep the combat enthusiasts of our party contented. And then they would meet the Chwinga, right? We could also have... We have the potential of Danica. To be the last minute savior. Right. She can carry some potions. She's an acolyte. She probably has a couple of low level spells. Nothing too crazy, but something to help them out. She can have realized that they were being had. And then they meet the Chwinga. Obviously cute, adorable, wants to have tea party. In order to spice up the Chwinga hiding place, Chwinga Grove is grown in and very beautiful. So what we're gonna have, hop over to Pinterest. So we're looking for some kind of like druid grove. It's made of ice, and we can kind of describe it very vividly. We can have it like have the trees sort of like interlacing together and growing together and somewhat frozen over, because the Chwinga that are here are actively influencing the surroundings, right? Like Danica thought they would be. So we can have that happen. Potentially, Danica meets up with the party. Yeah, okay. So if we have Danica here meet up with the party to help them with the method encounter, right? That Danica might have not completely figured out that there was a problem, but kind of has a bad feeling or something and wanted to come check things out, make sure the party was okay. And then they meet the Chwinga, who are cute and adorable. They want to have a tea party. The Chwinga Grove is grown very, very beautiful. We can have the have Elva outside, or have Elva also followed, tries to capture herself. So Elva comes in, tries to forcibly capture the Chwingas, if the party hasn't already tried to forcibly capture the Chwinga. I think that that'll work out pretty well. We'd have to give Elva some kind of stat block. Probably just like honestly make Elva a commoner or something. Nothing too crazy for her. We can just flip to the back of the monster manual, a very handy area to be to find like weak combatants. We can just give her like bandit here, 0-1/8, has a scimitar, 12 AC, 11 HP, totally perfect. Elva is a bandit. Also followed, tries to capture them herself. Yeah, very cool. And so what other sort of like symbolism can we throw in here during our exploration and everything? The Chwinga, the things that the Chwinga interact with. We can have those things that the Chwinga are interacting with have a specific sort of like charm to them, or that they have, you know, that part where like ice kind of freezes on the outside of a bubble, frozen bubble images. Like this, right? I'm imagining like they touch the glass and there's like a little tiny handprint with like 3 fingers or something, and then it just does this along the glass. And it's like super beautiful and aesthetic everywhere that they go. And that would be in contrast to like maybe the chickens that got killed, right? That they don't have that same sort of like crystallization going on or something like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else? Let's see. Let's make sure we add that. We'll actually add this down in Elva's house. Elva's house. Everything Chwinga touch is relaxed and crystallizes beautifully. Things like chickens, planted things do not. We could even have Elva herself could be a plant from like from the caravan. She could just be a bandit, right? Like we're giving her the bandit stat block. So she could be a bandit who's been planted in this house after they robbed it. So it could look way more robbed than it actually should be. And then if they have a keen eye, like this DC 10 investigation, DC 14 survival, if they have a keen eye, they can realize that there's the only things that the Chwinga actually interacted with were like cutlery and the windows, right? I think, yeah. Very, very cool. I like that a lot. And then what happens with Danica? Danica realizes the error of her ways, decides to stay to protect the Twingas, send the player characters back on their way, where they then go out into Icewind Dale, kind of doing their own thing, because they will be stuck there when the actual players show up. Either these will be the actual players or something along those lines. I think that's very cool. I think that that will make for a really great encounter. We have, let's check our pillars, right? We have some role play with Sephet Caltro and the Elva. We have a little bit of intrigue going in with a little bit of like flippy floppiness, right? Danica Greysteel is going to be a cool character. Sephet Caltro is going to be a cool character. Elva, I'm thinking of a specific character from One Piece, Dadan. She is Dadan One Piece. Pretty lovable character, but is also a very like kind of gruff character. Very like Karen energy, where she could be she could have that like Karen energy of like, these things won't leave me alone, please help me, blah blah blah, and be believable enough, right? So make her a like Dawn. Danica Greysteel, I don't have a ton of ideas for. Probably someone a little bit upbeat, very like hopeful. She's a young, like she's an acolyte. She's a young mage apprentice. So she's young mage apprentice, eager to help, easily misled. Boom. Okay, Sephet Caltro is, of course, a fuck psychopath. Psychopath. Wants Chwinga out of area. Or he wants to... Maybe he wants to... Because Sephet's whole thing is about sacrifice, right? So maybe he wants to sacrifice the Chwinga to Oral? Does that make any sense? Yeah, I think that does make sense, because the humans who specifically want to protect the like good flow of things, they'll want to protect the Chwinga, right? But the humans who are only interested in protecting themselves will want to sacrifice the Chwinga, which would in turn kind of piss Oral off. So I think that kind of loop, that makes sense, where they're trying to one up Oral and they're trying to like get it over on her, but instead they're actually like kind of fooling themselves. So Sephet could be wait, no, it doesn't make sense, because Sephet would be against those people then, right, who are trying to bypass the sacrifices. We need a little bit better motivation for Sephet other than just being a psychopath. Because he gets... There's got to be a reason that the good-willed people who trust nature are aligned against, or that the Chwinga are aligned against Sephet specifically. Because we don't actually want Sephet outed by the end of this, if we can avoid it. If we have... Why on earth would Sephet want them dead? He's not super, like, well aligned, right? He could probably just be operating, like, under orders. Could be trying to capture them for sale, right? He's trying to capture them for sale, but the like good-willed people won't kind of see through it because of the Chwinga's help. Okay. Trying to capture for sale good-willed people who interact with Chwinga, won't rat them out. There we go. So yeah, this way they'll like, as they're kind of doing their like brief investigation of the town, they will interact with multiple groups of people who are not willing to help them, but Sefik and this bandit will be very willing to help them because they're actually looking to they're actually looking to capture and kill these things. That makes sense. I can dig that. So he's trying to capture them for sale on the caravan, like on orders of Torga or whatever. He doesn't care too much, but the Chwinga don't like him because he's an ice druid abomination. Cool. We can make the Chwinga inspection like a super fun, like little cutscene for them. I know that Tibbers definitely really enjoy that. Putting a lot more flair into that. Might even write up a thing, but I like how this is playing out. I think this could definitely be played out in 4 hours, which is our normal playtime. Kind of depends. Like you honestly never know. The last one shot I played was 12 hours long, so I think that this, in general, I really like this. I think this is a fun kind of spice up for this to make it a little bit more challenging in some ways and a little bit more on the a little bit more engaging than what this quest was, which was just roll a percentile dice a couple of times. Eventually, you find a house. They basically tell you exactly where the Chwinga are. You go to exactly where the Chwinga are, and then they immediately make friends with you. So this still has all of the stuff that was in the core thing. We added Sefik. We added a little bit more intrigue to it, and a little bit more challenge by having the Sefik and Elva plant an ambush there. Defending, quote unquote, defending the Twingas home, and then Elva showing up and probably like letting the players know that they are truly on the right hand, on the right side, and potentially throwing Danica in there towards the end during the interaction with the Chwinga can help prevent the players from like actually acting hostilely towards them, which I think will also be a really, really cool thing. Okay, I like this. I like this overall. I think this is a really, really good, really good foundation or just layout in general for this one shot, and even potentially to make this a little bit more exciting to use as an intro to the campaign, right? Because you could actually turn this, now that it's a little bit more spiced up, a little bit more engaging, you can turn this into something that now pivots into hunting down Sefik Caltro. Someone approaches you, there's a serial killer on the loose, they're killing everyone with these ice spears. You know about the ice spears, right? Those are the things that were being used to kill those chickens back in the thing. How could that possibly be related? So this can actually tie in, like now that we've added Sefik Caltro into this mix and added a little bit more intrigue, you can really, really tie into then just going into the Sefik Caltro quest line, because now your character's like, okay, we have to find where Sefik Caltro lives, or where the Sefik Caltro's caravan is. We know that he was just in this city, so he can't be super far, so we have to kind of figure out, like, hunt him down from there. And I think that could honestly be really, really cool. And now I can potentially, depending on how the players feel about it, I can then take these characters that they use and we kind of do whatever with them, right? We can have maybe one of them stays behind with Danica, maybe one of them goes back into town, just keeps living their life. Maybe one of them turns into the person that hires the players to go find Sefik Caltro because they don't like what he is up to. But I think that's a really good place to be. That's probably where I'm going to call it for this segment of the stream. It was super fun to get to fiddle around with some of that. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're here on YouTube, listening to this, like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube thing. This is what YouTube's here to do. I love Icewind Dale. We're going to be here to make some more content of it in the future. We're not super rushing, but we do have our thing. One last thing that we can kind of do, we could potentially look around for some combat maps and stuff, but I'll save some of that for our actual stream when it happens. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you later. Bonk.